All right, everybody. I'm back. Gonna be back. So it is Monday evening here on the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. We did the full show on Sunday. If you missed any of that, make sure to go back and check it out. We talked a lot of college football, even some college basketball. Tonight, though, a little bit of a quieter day in the world of college sports, but do want to start to look ahead to Tuesday night, where boy, do we have a very intriguing matchup at the Yum Center in Louisville, Kentucky. One of the great rivalries in college basketball, maybe the best, maybe a little too early on the calendar. Let's go ahead and talk Louisville and Kentucky. Okay, so very intriguing matchup. By the way, as I'm recording, Circa has not released a line yet. I should mention, by the way, if you're in the Louisville area, SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. So if you need tickets, SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres gets you $20 off. All right, let's go ahead and dive in. By the way, the rankings on the side there are not totally accurate. Somehow Louisville fell in the polls despite winning their first two games. But let's go ahead and dive into this game. Awesome game. I'll say this. I think both these teams very easily could be in Indianapolis playing in a Final Four, could be playing on that Monday night for a national championship game. So this is as healthy as both of these programs have felt at the same time in a long time. I think it is a great early season matchup. Now, I understand calendar-wise, this is a game that usually gets played around New Year's. It's a big adjustment for a lot of people. But just in terms of the basketball, I am so fired up. Let's go ahead and dive in. Let's make a pick. Let's start with Louisville. You know, I certainly talk plenty about Kentucky on this channel. Do want to talk a little bit about Louisville. And I guess what I would say about Louisville is this, is I think the last time that most of us saw them was that exhibition game against Kansas. It did not go well. Darren Peterson was unbelievable. Mikel Brown Jr. struggled. But I'll also say this part. 2 games, 2 dominant victories. I know it's only South Carolina State, only Jackson State, but I'm not one of these people that says that you can't take anything out of it. Listen, you were supposed to win big in both of those games, and you kicked butt and took names. A 104-45 victory over South Carolina State, a 106-70 victory over Jackson State over the last couple days. And so let's go ahead and dive in. I think the big thing to me in watching those early games with Louisville, again, you don't want to overreact, but I think there are things you could take away. First of all, I think the vision that we all saw in March and April when this roster came together, I think through a couple games in the regular season, it is coming to fruition in Louisville, right? So in the offseason, what was the big conversation? The one building block that you knew you had coming into this year was Mikel Brown Jr. And we know his backstory, but I think it's still pretty wild. You know, growth spurt basically in his junior year of high school, another growth spurt in his senior year. He's 6'5" by the time, you know, he hits the summer going into his freshman year. And listen, it's obvious. It's been spoken. Pat Kelsey wanted to build a team that could shoot around him, that was athletic around him. And so far, so good. You know, as I said, it's coming to fruition. All 5 starters are averaging double figures for this team. I think it's kind of interesting. Mikel Brown Jr. basically, listen, I think teams are trying to take away his offense. And so he's saying, okay, I'm going to get my buckets, but I'm also going to get others involved. 7.5 assists per game for Mikel Brown Jr. He's only taken 17 shots in the first 2 games, which I think is actually a good thing because, again, he's letting the game come to him. He's not trying to force his offense. And again, 7.5 assists per game to go along with the 14.5 points per game that he's scoring. As importantly, what did we talk about? You have an incredible one-and-done point guard, and then from there, what is equally as important, surrounding him with the right pieces. Well, you go into the portal in the offseason, you want a bunch of shooting. That's exactly what Louisville has gotten so far. Okay, Ryan Conwell basically putting up near identical stats to what he did last year at Xavier, 15.5 points per game, 41% shooting from beyond the three-point arc. Isaac McNeely, you know you're a bucket getter from beyond the arc when you're averaging 12.5 on 41% shooting behind the three-point arc, and those numbers are actually down from a year ago. So you know you're a pure bucket getter. You know you're a pure shooter when you're shooting 41% and those numbers are actually a little bit down. I think the other thing, Connie Roos has been phenomenal. You know, you just watch him. He oozes NBA potential. And then beyond him in the front court, you have these guys were brought in to be physical, to be tough, to complement the backcourt pieces. Sananda Frew, I think, has been everything that you were hoping you were going to get when he committed out of Germany, averaging 10.5 and 6.5. And the guy that I actually thought played better than anybody in the exhibition loss to Kansas, was Javon Hadley, and he has been exactly what you want out of a 5th/6th-year senior. 13 points per game, 9 rebounds, a little bit of an undersized 4, but darn it, does he play his butt off. From the Kentucky perspective, I think it's safe to say a tale of 2 seasons, even though we're 2 games into the regular season. Of course, you had the 2 exhibitions. Look, Kentucky, we had the exhibition game against Purdue where you had a point guard with Denzel Aberdeen. You looked phenomenal. You had the Georgetown loss in the exhibition slate without a point guard. You had Nichols essentially without a point guard. I know Denzel Aberdeen came back for the second half. And then you had Friday night against Valparaiso where it all came together. Okay. So as far as everything that's happened so far with Kentucky, the Purdue win was phenomenal. The Georgetown loss, like I said, I thought matchup wise, that's just a tough team to play when you don't have a guy to, instigate your offense to get it going. By the way, I think Georgetown, I said it that night. I said they're an NCAA tournament team. Just go to Maryland and win at Maryland on Friday night. And then the Nichols game, I called it the Abe Simpson game. It was because I called it the Abe Simpson game. Have you seen that Simpsons meme where Abe Simpson, the dad, walks in, puts his hat down on the coat rack, and then walks back out? That was me basically turning in the Nichols game. I was like, I got to check out Kentucky. It's the season opener. Let's see what they're all about. They had like 13 points, 8 minutes into the game, 9 minutes in the game. I was like, yeah, I'm not sticking around for this debacle. Like I said, they put Denzel Aberdeen into the game in the second half. They look much better. And then listen, I thought against Valparaiso, it was exactly what you wanted to see in the 107-59 victory over Valpo. Most important thing with Kentucky, they have a point guard. They have 2 now that Jalen Lowe is back healthy. Now, I know Jalen Lowe didn't play a ton in that game, but I just thought it was so obvious with both Jalen Lowe and Denzel Aberdeen in that lineup how much better the offense flowed as a team, as a unit. This was a team that with Jalen Lowe on the floor and Denzel Aberdeen on the floor, 27 assists on 37 made baskets. That's a pretty good percentage. Jalen Lowe gave you everything that you wanted in limited minutes. Give Mark Pope credit. Didn't try to force him back too much in a game that was out of hand early. 6 points, 5 assists off the bench. Beyond that, Denzel Aberdeen, 12 and 2 assists in the starting lineup. As far as everything else with Kentucky is concerned, listen, a couple things stand out. Is one, I do think the size, and I said this after the Purdue game, I think the size and athleticism across the board is what is going to be Kentucky's calling card this season, right? You need Jalen Lowe. Don't get me wrong. But when you could throw 6'5" Denzel Aberdeen out there at the 2, Otega Owe 6'4", 6'5" at the 2. And then I think, as importantly, Mo Diabate, a little bit undersized, but I said it the day he committed, that is going to be a fan favorite. I think to me, the thing that stands out, though, is all of the other guys that might not even be starters, right? I don't know if Colin Chandler is going to be a starter when Jaden Quaintance comes back and when, Jalen Lowe gets his legs under him. Like, I think ultimately Colin Chandler is maybe your 6th or 7th man, right? Well, that's a heck of a 6th or 7th man if you can get him. Love what I saw from him against Valpo. And then, like I said, those other bench pieces, that to me is the separator. Andrea Jelovic, that guy's an NBA player, in my opinion. 6'10", makes plays, does whatever. Malachi Moreno was phenomenal. I think the great thing about him is that as you get deeper into the season and Jaden Quaintance comes back, you're not going to need him to even do as much as he's doing now, but looked excellent against Valpo. Cam Williams, I know, is struggling, but he's going to figure it out. And so I love the depth and I love the athleticism that this team has, specifically on the wing. Didn't even mention Jasper Johnson. As far as a pick, as far as a prediction for this game, let me say this. A couple things. First of all, Circa does not have a point spread out yet. That is the only sports book that we use, by the way. Remember, new Circa Sportsbook at Mint Kentucky Downs. But I bring it up because I have seen that, if you go to some of these other crappy who cares offshore sports books, they do have Louisville as a slight favorite. And so what I would say to that is a couple things. Is one, I think it's hard to pick against Louisville at home. But I do think it's one of those games. Listen, I think it could go either way. As far as this game is concerned, first of all, I know it's a home game for Louisville. I'm not trying to take a shot at Louisville, but we know there's going to be a lot of blue in that arena. I looked on SeatGeek to get in prices about $175. I think a lot of people got their tickets early. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres. Remember, by the way, I get you $20 off if you're still trying to get in. But I bring it up because there's going to be a lot of blue in that arena. And as far as the game is concerned, this is what I actually think is going to go down. I think it comes down to a couple things. I think both point guards are really good. I assume Jalen Lowe is going to start. I assume he's going to look really good doing it. And I think Mikael Brown Jr., I think that first night, there was a lot of hype playing Darren Peterson. You're at home. It's your debut. You're trying to prove how you fit, how you belong. And I could see where he'd be a little bit overwhelmed. But I think he's shown me everything that I've wanted to see out of him the last two games. And so I actually think, to me, what it comes down to is the wings and the bigs and who has the edge. I think, to me, Connie Rusk, again, can he keep doing what he's been doing on the wing? Conversely, whether it is a Denzel Aberdeen, whether it is a Cam Williams, whoever it might be, can you slow him down on the wing, on the perimeter? And then down low, I just think it's going to be a battle. Brandon Garrison for Kentucky, Sonata Frew for Louisville. Oh, by the way, the battle of kind of gritty, tough four men, Javon Hadley versus Mo Diabate. And so I think the talent is actually pretty similar. And so when I look at this game, I got to give the edge to the home team, right? When I look at any matchup like this, what immediately stands out, who's at home, especially early in the year? Because the one thing that we have seen, especially in regular season games, is when you get these teams at full strength in their own building, in a true home game, true road game, it's always going to be, especially early, advantage to the team playing at home, right? Think about what we saw this weekend. North Carolina versus Kansas. That game's in Fog Allen. You probably like the Jayhawks to win. If they're playing maybe even in February, you sit there and say, well, neutral court, Darren Peterson, whatever. But it was in Chapel Hill. They had the home crowd. Caleb Wilson was awesome, got that fan base fired up early. Same with Michigan State, found a way to survive Arkansas. And you go on and on down the list. Most of the early big season games in home venues usually go to a home team, especially a team like Kentucky that hasn't faced any sort of road adversity so far. And so to me, I think the X factors in this game, who controls the paint, who controls the boards. And I think specifically Kentucky's three-point defense is another X factor. That's the other thing too. We know that Louisville can shoot the crap out of the ball because they brought in a bunch of guys that can shoot the crap out of the ball. I think Kentucky's three-point shooting will probably be better the deeper they get into the season as Jalen Lowe gets comfortable, but they're not there yet. They have work to do. And the other thing, too, is Mark Pope's teams historically have not been great defensively, especially early. So I'll say that Louisville wins. It's not one that I feel great on. Now, you should check out the Circa Sportsbook when the line comes out. But if I was betting it, I would lean Louisville. I have no strong opinion. I'll say 84-80 Louisville wins. And I'll say this, a couple things. One, I know people are frustrated with the timing of this game, but ultimately, in my opinion, it's good for college basketball. It is good for this sport. And I think it'll be a great measuring stick for both teams. Like I said, Louisville 84, Kentucky 80 is my official